Hello, Mr. Hardy here, and in this video I would like to teach you about Act 5, Scene 4 of Macbeth by Shakespeare. So you need to be familiar with this scene. You may have read it before, listened to it, watched it or studied it in class, and you're using this video nearer your exams for a refresher or for a deeper understanding of the scene. As usual, I'll start by summarising the plot. We'll explore the key characters, themes, contexts, quotes and techniques you may want to memorise for your assessment, and I'll leave you with a task you can complete at the end of the video if you wish to do so. So, Act 5, Scene 4 of Macbeth. What happens? Well, we are in Birnam Wood. We know this through the technique of cross-cutting. That's when you alternate between scenes to build towards a tense climax. Act 5, Scene 1, we were inside Macbeth's chamber. Act 5, Scene 2, we were outside. Act 5, Scene 3, we were back inside Macbeth's castle. Act 5, Scene 4, we're back outside. So the characters are either transitioning on and off stage for each scene, or the stage is split in two to try and portray both sides of the story slowly merging together. So in this scene, we are in Birnam Wood. Birnam Wood is significant because that name comes up in the Witcher's prophecies. We have many characters on stage. We have Malcolm, who is King Duncan's eldest son and the rightful heir to the Scottish throne. We have Seward, who is an experienced English general, so an experienced soldier. We have his son, who's called Seward's son. We have Macduff, who we know is a Scottish thane who is loyal to the Scottish throne, and he really comes across as Macbeth's rival in this play. We then have Menteith, Caithness and Angus, who we know are thanes of Scotland, and then we have other soldiers as well in this scene, and everyone is marching towards Dunsinane. So you've got to imagine being at the theatre, and on the stage there are, 10, 12 men in armour with swords, and they're marching on a wooden stage, and it's making an awful racket, and it's quite big and it's quite chaotic and it's quite loud, and this is quite an exciting moment, the bit before a battle, and the audience would respond to that excitement. Malcolm then instructs the soldiers to cut down branches from the nearby trees, the trees of Birnam Wood, and use them as camouflage, so that as they approach Macbeth's castle, Macbeth can't work out their numbers. He doesn't know how many people there are, he doesn't see them coming. This is a great military tactic to use your environment to your advantage. So Malcolm comes across as quite a wise king and quite a good military strategist here. And then the scene sort of comes to an end. Seward says some stuff, Macduff says some stuff, and everyone just marches on to Dunsinane Castle, where the climax, the big battle, will happen. So, I'm going to go through the characters who are mentioned in the stage directions. Of course, we have Malcolm, and he is presented by Shakespeare as wiser than his father, King Duncan, and a better military tactician. So this idea of kingship, being a good ruler, was important in Shakespeare's time, and he wanted to sort of advocate and maybe even educate King James I, who was his patron, about what it takes to be a good king. And I think Shakespeare's telling King James I he needs to be wise, and he needs to have a strategy. He needs to be a tactician and think ahead of other people. We have Seward, and he really just comes across as a professional soldier. Everything he says is to do with the battle and winning the battle. We have Seward's son. He says nothing, so really we learn very little about him in this scene. We have Macduff, who's quite highly motivated. He's highly motivated to kill Macbeth, for obvious reasons. Macbeth had his wife and children slaughtered. And Macduff gives kind of like a little pep talk towards the end of the scene. He says, "Put we on industrious soldiership." That basically means, let's be the best soldiers we can be and sort of win this fight. So he's quite clearly motivated to get revenge on Macbeth. Menteith has a couple of lines. He doesn't really do much other than advance the plot, and Caithness and Angus are also there, but they say nothing, so we don't really learn a great deal about their characters in this scene. Thematically, we have this theme of appearance versus reality. The Witcher's prophecy about Macbeth shall not be vanquished till great Burnham Wood moves to high Dunsinane Hill, it appears impossible. Forests can't unroot themselves and move themselves. However, in reality, Macbeth has been tricked because the prophecy didn't say the whole forest needs to move, but bits of the forest can move when Malcolm instructs his soldiers to hew down the boughs of the tree and bear them before as they march on to Dunsinane in Macbeth's castle. We have the themes of sort of power and violence, and there's different ways to interpret this. That the power struggle really is for the Scottish throne. Macbeth has usurped it, and they want to restore order in Scotland. They want to put the rightful heir to the throne, Malcolm, back on the throne. It is a violent scene in terms of language. We don't see any violence yet, but we have words like tyrant, we have words like war. These words are suggesting an upcoming graphic, violent end, and there's a few different threads of violence you can follow. You could follow Macduff's personal revenge that he wants to exact on Macbeth, because Macbeth ordered assassins to go kill his wife and children. If you sort of take it from a wider view, you might look at the political reasons for England sending up an English army up to Scotland to fight Macbeth. Remember from the previous video that there was a real-life historical event where England invaded Scotland, and Shakespeare knew about this and drew some elements from that into his writing. Contextually speaking, we have this idea of kingship. Kingship is the qualities that make a good king. And whilst King Duncan was a great king, and we get sort of imagery that suggests this about silver and gold, and then how he was virtuous, and how like even the angels sort of admired him. When it comes to Malcolm, he seems even better than his father. So whilst his father, King Duncan, trusted Macbeth, and Macbeth backstabbed him and literally stabbed him to death in his castle, Malcolm is wiser, and he trust tests Macduff in Act 4, Scene 3 before committing his trust to him. This is a smart thing to do as a ruler. Another good example of kingship is Malcolm seems like a better military strategist than King Duncan. When King Duncan was in trouble, when the Thane of Cawdor and MacDonald had betrayed him and was working together with King Sweno and the Norwegians to invade, King Duncan didn't know what to do, so he sent Macbeth off to go fight his battles, and Macbeth sort of orchestrated those military victories. But here Malcolm seems to be able to instruct the military by himself. He tells the soldiers to cut down branches and camouflage themselves. Clearly Malcolm has the qualities to be a good military leader, and this is important back in 11th century Alba, Scotland, where society was quite fragmented and there was many warring clans fighting each other. So it looks like Malcolm is going to go on to be a great king of Scotland, and I think Shakespeare uses this to suggest to the real-life Jacobean king of England in the 16th century, King James I, some qualities he might want to learn about good kingship, such as being careful who you trust, and such as being a good strategist and thinking ahead of your enemy. So, a couple of key quotes I may wish to remember. Let every soldier hew him down a bough and bear it before him. Hew means cut, bough means branch, so here Malcolm is instructing his soldiers to cut down a branch of Burnham Wood and use it as camouflage before they march on to Dunsinane Hill. When Seward talks about Macbeth, he calls him the confident tyrant. You could explore the adjective confident and how Macbeth has misplaced his confidence in the witch's prophecy. You could explore the noun tyrant and what that suggests about Macbeth as a ruler over Scotland. So, my advice is to make some notes from this video on a physical copy of the play, and you can go ahead and answer the question, how does Shakespeare build tension in Act 5 of Macbeth, if you wish to have some writing practice. There's a few things you could explore. I would definitely explore the cross-cutting and the effect that has. You may want to explore how, for example, in this scene there's loads of soldiers on stage in armour, and how that creates a loud, chaotic, exciting environment. You may want to talk about in previous scenes, Lady Macbeth's illness, mental illness, from the guilt she has over killing King Duncan, and how that might foreshadow how things end for the Macbeths at the end of the play. There's a few things you could talk about how Shakespeare's building tension in Act 5 of Macbeth. Well, if you like this, if you found this video useful, please give it a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel as I go through the remainder of Macbeth and other Shakespearean plays. And please feel free to leave a comment if you think I've left anything out. Well, thank you for your attention, and I'll see you on the next one.